Hey, what's up everyone? How's it going? This is Waj. Hope you guys are all doing well, and in this video we'll be doing a direct head-to-head console comparison between the all-new Nvidia Shield gaming console and the PlayStation 4. So if you guys are interested in seeing how the new Nvidia Shield console compares against the PlayStation 4, this is a perfect video for you. We're going to be taking a look at the major technical and graphical differences between the two and really see which machine has the most to offer when it comes to value, game selection, and overall graphical capabilities. So without any further ado, let's get right into this video. Now, even though both the Shield and the PS4 are similar in the fact that they're both gaming consoles designed for the TV, they're actually quite different in terms of how they achieve that functionality. One of the things you're going to notice straight off the bat is the compact size of the Shield console. It pretty much measures about half as much as the PlayStation 4, and it's quite thin as well. And that to me is one of the benefits of the Shield console. Since it's so compact, you can put it anywhere you like, whether that be on a computer desk or on your ever-crowded living room entertainment stand. Now, even though the Nvidia Shield is quite a little compact machine, Nvidia is really trying to do their best to make it as powerful as possible. They're using their latest 64-bit processor, the Tegra X1 chip. This is actually a octa-core chip that's comprised of 2 quad cores, and it also has an integrated GPU using Maxwell-based technology, and it's a 256 core GPU, so that should give you plenty of horsepower to play most of its games at fairly decent playable frame rates at 1080p. Furthermore, we have 3 gigabytes of RAM, so plenty of multitasking capabilities on this little machine. Plus, in terms of your wireless connectivity, it's using 802.11 AC dual band Wi-Fi connectivity using a MIMO. That's really crucial to this machine since there's so many streaming applications, whether that be for games and movies. So you're really going to need a fast internet with a strong connection to your home network. Now, you might be asking, how does the Shield compare to the PlayStation 4 technically? Well, the PlayStation 4, as you guys probably already know, is using a Jaguar AMD based CPU. It's using an 8-core processor. It has 8 gigabytes of RAM, and in terms of GPU, it's using a modified version of the AMD 7870, which can compute up to 1.84 teraflops. Now, unfortunately, there's no direct benchmark or test that we can do on both platforms since we're using a custom interface on the PlayStation side and we're using Android TV as the main OS on the Shield. But stay tuned, we will be doing a direct head-to-head graphical comparison between a game being streamed onto the Shield and a game being played natively on the PlayStation 4. Now, in terms of storing all your games and all your media content, the PlayStation 4 comes with a 500 gigabyte of removable hard drive. You can easily upgrade it to whatever you like, which is quite fantastic. Now, the Shield actually comes in 2 different versions, the 16 and 500 gigabyte version. So basically, for the 500 gigabyte version, you have to pay about $100 more. Now, you can get a micro SD card and expand the memory yourself because there is a micro SD expansion slot at the back of the Shield, which is really nice to see. Now, as far as ports and connectivities, the PS4 has a decent amount of options. In terms of audio, we have a dedicated optical out. We have HDMI out, which is actually 1.4 compliant, so there's no 4K on the PlayStation at this point. And you obviously have an Ethernet connection as well as an auxiliary connection. And of course, we have some USB connections for charging your controller at the front of the console. Now, the back of the Shield, we have quite a bit of options. We basically have a proprietary power connection next to a HDMI 2.0 connection that allow you to basically view 4K content and potentially even 4K gaming in the future. So that's really nice to see that brand new connectivity there. Next, we have a full-size gigabit Ethernet connection, which is quite essential if you want to get serious into game streaming, especially if you don't have the fastest wireless network available to you. And after that, we have 2 full-size USB 3.0 connections, and right next to that, we have a micro USB connection. And last but not least, we have the micro SD card slot, which is again going to allow you to expand your memory. A very handy tool, especially if you get the 16 gigabyte model like I did. Now let's talk about the controllers that comes in both these two machines. On the Nvidia Shield side, it's using the identical controller that we came across last year with the Shield tablet. So a very decent controller, a very similar interface of what you would expect to see on an Xbox controller or any modern gaming controller. The configuration configuration of the thumbsticks is where you expect them to be. You have the standard A, B, X, Y buttons, and obviously a directional pad. We also have, again, 2 triggers and 2 shoulder buttons. Pretty standard stuff. Now, the stuff that isn't kind of standard is a touchpad, kind of like the PlayStation 4, but we have the pad located at the bottom of the controller, right above the 2 volume dials. Now, at the top portion of the controller, we have a couple of different capacitive buttons. On the very top, we have the Nvidia logo, which is going to activate the Android TV search system. So definitely a little handy tool there, especially if you want to search your game library or search the web. It's basically using Google search technology behind it. Now, below that, we have 2 start buttons, which is going to allow you to pull up different menu items depending upon what kind of game you're in or what kind of applications you have. And right below that, we have a little circular button which pulls up the record functionalities built into the Android TV Shield console. So here you can actually start streaming your gameplay on your Twitch channel. You can take a screenshot. You could even record your gameplay and save it for later purposes, which is definitely an excellent and handy tool. Now, the PS4 obviously has very similar functionalities when it comes to streaming out your gameplay, capturing different gameplay footage and things like that. So pretty redundant features there, but it's nice to see that we have it on the Shield console nonetheless. Now, coming back to the controllers, I really don't have any major complaints about the Shield controller, but for me personally, I still think that the ergonomics are better on the PlayStation 4 controller. Plus, we have the rumble feature, which the Shield controller unfortunately lacks. Now, let's talk about the number one most important thing about any gaming console, and that's obviously the game content and library. Now, the PlayStation 4 has a very rich game library right now. It has over 5,500 games available to it, whether that be based on the PlayStation Now streaming service or physical discs themselves, and there's a lot of titles available for pretty much every kind of gamer out there. Now, as a pure games experience, the Shield console is actually quite compelling. There's actually 4 game libraries to choose from. The first library is based on the Nvidia Shield optimized games. These are essentially Android-based games that have been optimized for the Shield interface and for the controller. The third source of games is basically Android games library themselves. So these are basically casual games that you would find on your smartphone that have been ported to the Shield. The other portion comes from Nvidia Grid. Now, basically, this is a service where Nvidia streams out all these popular titles to your Shield console. It's the same service we've seen on the tablet and indeed their portable system. And basically, you really do need a very fast connection to make this whole experience to work properly. And even if you do have a very fast internet connection, you're still going to come across a little bit of lag, a little bit of response time, and 720p resolution, generally speaking, with the occasional artifacts and hiccups. Game streaming is still fairly in the early stages right now, but I can say at this point it's not as refined and as fluid as experience as what I experienced on the PlayStation Now game streaming service on the PlayStation 4, but it's a cool free feature at this point that hopefully will get better in the future. Now, the final source of games is actually streaming personally from your PC to the Shield console itself using NVIDIA Experience technology. And so as long as you have a newer NVIDIA GPU that's capable of playing all the latest titles available out there, you can basically stream from your PC to your Shield console, provided that you have a fast network connection. And of course, if you don't have a good wireless connection, you can always use an Ethernet connection and solve those issues. And this has been a really great experience. Most of the games that I played worked beautifully with minimal latency and lag and generally clear details, certainly in the 1080p vicinity in terms of resolution. And plus, the biggest part about it is you get access to all of your PC games. There's some games that still might not work depending upon the driver issues and things like that, but generally speaking, most of your mainstream games work flawlessly without any hiccups. And that really makes this thing very useful, especially to people like myself that just want to get PC games onto their TV without having to think about it too much. At this point, it's still not a perfect solution, but it's a solution nonetheless that hopefully will get better over time. Now, since we've gotten all that stuff out of the way, let's just talk about the actual graphical differences between streaming a game on the Nvidia Shield and playing the same game natively on the PlayStation 4. So what we're going to do is take a look at the same game, same situation. We're going to max out the PC settings that we're going to be streaming at so we can get basically the best possible scenario we can have on the Nvidia Shield perspective. So let's go ahead and take a look and see which game system looks better to your eyes. Now, in summary, I do have to say that there's a lot of variables when you're streaming games from your PC to the Nvidia Shield, so this comparison is not really applicable to everyone. But essentially, if you have a computer that can play most of the modern titles at full maximum settings at very playable frame rates, and you have a fast wireless network or a LAN connection to the Shield, you generally are going to have a very similar experience to the PlayStation 4, because there's still going to be a little bit of a disconnect between the streamed game and the actual game itself, and you could definitely tell that when you compare the streamed game recording to the PC game recording, where you're still going to see a little bit of artifacts here and there. And if we were to talk about consistency, since the PlayStation 4 is going to give you a consistent frame rate and the exact same graphical capabilities across the board, you're probably going to have a general better gaming experience on the PlayStation 4 console. That is, of course, until the technology improves on the Nvidia Shield side. But in most cases, games are very playable and certainly very clear with minimal lag, as we talked about before. But when it comes down to comparing it to the PlayStation 4, I still think that the PlayStation 4 is generally the better gaming machine. So in general, I think the Nvidia Shield in terms of game selection definitely gives the PlayStation 4 and indeed even the Xbox One a good run for its money. And talking about money, it's actually half the price if you go with the 16GB version like I did compared to the next generation console. So there's definitely a lot of value. I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts and opinions on the new Shield console. What do you think it has to offer based on your unique needs and interests? Love to hear all your thoughts down below, and definitely check out the description if you want more information about each of the consoles. If you like videos like this and help support the channel, check out our Amazon links, and if you get anything through our Amazon links, it gives us a little bit of kickback. Doesn't cost you anything extra, but it helps make all these videos possible. It definitely helps us out. I'd like to thank all you guys for your continued support, and definitely stay tuned for the full review of the Nvidia Shield console coming up pretty soon. So thanks again for watching, but we'll see you later. Take care.